Hello, everyone. It's time for another fun-filled drawing lesson with me, Mr. Linderman, your favorite art teacher. Today, we're going to draw what are known as the 5 basic geometric forms. And I know we did a little bit of this really simple-like when we drew our elements of design, but we're going to take them to the next level today. Really understanding how to draw these 5 geometric forms can help you to draw just about anything that's out there in our world. Sometimes it's these forms alone, sometimes it's combinations of these forms. So take a look at this. Here we are. So it's these 5 forms right here. The sphere, the cone, the cube, the cylinder, and the pyramid. Surprisingly, all of these things are found in nature. We've already talked about how this looks like a pine tree, or this looks like a trunk, and of course you've got planets and eyeballs and bubbles and things, and even rocks and crystals that grow naturally like this, or things that fracture regularly, which is to say they have faces or facets that fracture like this. So when we look around our world, we see things like this. I'm also going to show you today how to draw some fabric, as you might include that in your still life if you're up for a challenge. There was a fella named Paul Cézanne who actually was the guy that really impressed Picasso. Picasso was like, "Oh, Cézanne, you're the best." Because Picasso, if you know his work, he used to reduce things down into simplified geometric forms, and he created this movement called Cubism. Well, Cézanne, what I guess would be known as the father then of Cubism, because he, even before Picasso, if you look at some of his still lives here, he was reducing things down to its simple geometry. He saw spheres and cones and cylinders and everything, and famously said, "Everything in nature takes its form of the sphere, the cone, and the cylinder." And I would argue, Mr. Linderman would add to that, also the cube and the pyramid and prisms and things of that nature. So there's really 2 ways to think about shading these things. One is either gradual or immediate, or what we call a direct value change. So when you look at something round, of course, like a cone, it obviously goes from light to dark or dark to light slowly. That's a slow or gradual change. Same with the sphere. You can watch the shading on the sphere go from light to dark slowly. Same with the cylinder. Now, when you get into things like hexagonal or octagonal prisms or triangular prisms or things like cubes or pyramids, then the change is very immediate or direct, right? One side's dark, one side's light. You've got darks, rather darks, lights, medium sides. You might see a variation in shadow, but it's likely happening because there's a little reflection off of this object that's making it light over here. So light does funny things and bounces all over the place. But again, you should be able to spot all the round objects here and see how they change slowly. There are some exceptions. Here we have a flat edge. You might see the bottom of a cone where you see that, again, direct change. But on those rounded surfaces, like a pen or a piece of pipe, a tailpipe, a basketball, things like that, it's always going to slowly change. So we'll get into how to draw fabric in just a couple minutes, but let's start with just tackling some basic geometric forms. So here we go. You're going to follow me, grab your pencil, and you will need an eraser. And if you have a blending stump, that would be helpful too. So we're going to do this in your sketchbook. It's worth 50 points. So here we go. I am going to start with a circle, probably the easiest, but that circle is going to turn into a sphere. So I'm going to make this about the size of a quarter and just make my best freehand circle. If you wanted to trace something and really get into this, I guess you could, but I'm not looking for perfect, just looking for your best effort. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my pencil different, and I'm going to try to shade this. And what I'm thinking about in my mind, this is what's going on in my mind, is a moon shape, kind of a crescent moon. So I'm going to add a crescent moon shadow on this. And I don't really care if I go outside the lines a little bit. That's okay. But I'm trying to shade this like a moon. And I can go quicker if I use the side of my pencil. And so that itself, just adding that shading takes it a step further than a circle. You could even use your pencil point and make it a little darker on this one edge over here so that it slowly changes. Darker on this edge, then lighter. And this is a little test or a little exercise you can do to try to get this as smooth as possible. If yours looks really blotchy, or you have what we call abrupt value changes, I'll just do one of those right here so you can see. If you have something where it's changing too quick and it goes from dark to light, well, then you just go slow and you try to kind of polish that away so that you don't have that abrupt change and it's more gradual. One thing you can do is go in circles. So you can see here I'm using small circles to build up more or less value. But we're trying to get this to slowly change while still kind of preserving a little highlight over there. Let's switch pencils. That's a very light pencil, and I want to put a little more dark on this side. So a 2B is a good pencil to do this exercise. The one I was using was like a very light, like a HB or something even lighter. So you can do this with lines, or you can do it with the side of your pencil, but just do your best to make it really smooth, okay? And it's okay if you go a little bit outside the lines. Now you could even use your finger and really get this to blend really smooth, but as we've talked about, using your finger, it's kind of a no-no for artists because of course of the oils and dirts and salts in your fingers. You could use a blending stump, and you could first maybe pick up some of this graphite and then start to move it over here. And I'm going to put a little bit of value up on that edge, but I still want this to look like it's darker over in this area. So you might go back and forth and do this a few times until you get it just the way you want. But it should have a nice dark side. Welcome to the dark side. And a light side, and try to make it as smooth as possible. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this outline. I don't know if you're aware of this, but things don't have outlines. So if you were drawing a basketball or something, you really want the value to go right up to the edge, but you want to take your eraser and get rid of that line so that it's just the value going right to the edge that defines this form. So I'm going to try to get rid of that, and I might just use my blending stump just to make the, make a little too dark there. That's okay, I can erase some of that. But I want just my value to go right to the edge, and that's going to define the form. So check that out. I made a sphere, and there is no outline. That is the goal. That's what we want, okay? So on this side, you might kind of have an outline, but really it's not a bold line like you'd see in a coloring book. It's just darker on this side. All right, so you could, I could spend a lot of time on this trying to make it perfect, but hopefully yours looks something like that. Another thing that you could do to make this even better is a cast shadow. So a shadow that is cast off of the object. So I'm essentially just making an oval down here, and I'm going to use my side of my pencil. I just switched techniques instead of this way, going this way. And I'm just going to put some value in here. And one thing I know about shadows is they are way more intense right next to the object. It's a lot darker there. So I really press hard. And then just like I did on my sphere, I'm going to slowly lighten my pressure and try to make this little cast shadow get lighter and lighter so that it's just kind of blurry and fuzzy out here. But look how it gets darker and more intense right next to the object. That's what we're going for. There we go. All right, kind of cool. Now you might just pop in a highlight. You know, if you've got some value here and it's not totally like paper white, you could come in here with your eraser and you could just pop up a little highlight, you know, where the light has hit it. Maybe this is a shiny little, like a blueberry or something. So that's the highlight. In fact, let's start to label some of these things so you can remember. This is some new vocabulary we haven't talked a lot about. So this here, just draw yourself a little arrow because this is just your notes, right? So highlight. Because we have, ooh, broke my pencil. Because we have lights that are up high, we have highlights. This down here is the cast shadow. Cast shadow. Because that's the shadow that's cast off of the object, the same as you have a cast shadow off of you as you're walking around on a sunny day. Just the shadow in the middle, or all the shading, actually has a name. We call it the core shadow. Some people call it the form shadow. That's another word because it is a form that we're making, but I prefer core shadow. And there's one more strange thing that's happened sometimes. You've got a shiny object like this, and maybe it's sitting on a table, and maybe that tablecloth is white. Just going to draw a little bit of perspective here, so it looks like this is going back in space. Notice all these lines are just going to, say, a point up here. All right, so you could have a reflected highlight, like back here, and don't make it just so bright like paper white, but back here, you might have a little shine. Try to pop that up a little bit more. And you'll see it. You'll see it on objects. And what's happening is, you know, you've got light up here, and the light will bounce off of the table and then bounce onto the object, and you get a reflected highlight. I feel like they should call it a low light, but that's what they call it, a reflected highlight. Because highlights are those shiny things that you make look lighter on the object. So, so there you have it. Hopefully you've got yourself a decent looking sphere. Now what I like to always do is turn it into something. I mean, it kind of looks like a bubble or something. I think I'll make this into like an orange. Just make a little belly button thing up there on top where it was once connected to its orange tree. And I'll just drop in a little bit of texture. If I had a close-up view of this, I'd make the texture more serious, but you know, at least it looks like something now. Now you've drawn an orange. Again, my favorite part of this is the fact that there's no outlines. That's what we're going for. All right, let's do, I think, probably the next most easy one, and that is the cone shape. So for a cone, we're essentially drawing a triangle like this. Do this lightly. And then for the bottom, well, essentially, you know, if you could see through the bottom, it would be something like this. But we really just need this part here. And there's our cone. So it kind of looks transparent right now, but we are going to make this solid. So to shade a cone shape, you could, again, use the side of your pencil, or you can use the pencil point. I'm going to turn this a little bit. It's just comfortable for me. And I'm going to use the side of my pencil. And I'm going to shade. And I'm not just going to go this same direction the whole time. I'm going to kind of turn and start to always go toward the point here. And I'm going to lighten my pressure a little bit. And then maybe on this edge, it catches a little more value. So I've got a nice white or glowing streak down the middle. Now I know what you're saying, Mr. Linderman colored outside the lines. He's not very good. Well, they invented these things called erasers, and I'd rather work smarter, not harder. So I usually just shade quick, and then I clean it up at the end. So watch this as I make this really smooth from dark, nice and smooth. See how I keep shading up to the point? I'm not just going left to right. I'm going toward the point the whole time. And I'll leave a little streak there, and then I'll make it dark again. That looks pretty good, but I know what you're saying. You got some fuzzy edges there, man. Well, check this out. I'm going to take another piece of paper, and I'm going to use this as a sort of stencil to block this out. So I put this edge right here. There we go. And I'm just going to press with my fingers so this paper can't come up and buckle. And I'm just going to erase this part. Oh, look at that clean edge. I love it. And another one right here. I'll just erase that. And the beauty of this is I'll have no real outlines. You could erase your outlines. You might even erase the outline down here. But to be honest, usually when you have an object sitting on a table or something, you do get a nice little, you know, dark ring down here because it casts a little shadow. The shadow on this would be a little different. I would just go like this and make something that's kind of pointy, considering that there's a light source up here shining down on this thing. But the same rule applies as the shadow over here. It should be darker and more intense right underneath this object. So you can go as dark as you want. And as you come further and further away from the object, you can go lighter and lighter and lighter. Try to make this, just like the cone, a very gradual transition from dark to light. So I'm just going to put a little value here and then use my blender to make it nice and smooth. And even out here, I'll just make it kind of fuzzy. Shadows aren't as crisp right as they are right next to the object. Like right here, this part of the shadow should be pretty tight. Nice line. But as you get further and further away, it just kind of melts. You know, that's what I call it. It just kind of melts away. So now you've drawn a decent cone, hopefully without any outlines. That's the main goal. But you could always turn it into something. You could make it into a party hat, and you know, that you might wear on New Year's Eve or something. You could write Happy New Year's, or you could make it into an ice cream cone. Well, an ice cream cone that fell over, anyway. So maybe I'll do that. I'd like you to try to turn yours into something. You could make it into a pylon that you might see in the middle of the road, or maybe it's a megaphone because you're a cheerleader. You could cut the top off so you could speak into it. But the point I'm trying to make is, man, you see cones everywhere. When you think of bird beaks, or you think of mountain peaks, or even our own noses, pine trees, if you know how to draw a cone, you know how to draw a lot of stuff. I think I'll just add a little bit of melted ice cream here. Maybe there's the ice cream off here in the distance. There you go. Someone dropped their ice cream. What are you gonna do? My favorite, mint chocolate chip. Love it. All right, so we've done 2, and we just need to do a few more. So let's go with our last rounded form, which would be the cylinder. Cylinders are a little more complex. So check it out. I'll put mine right up here in this corner. I'm gonna start with the top of my cylinder, and I need to make this a decent oval. One thing you don't wanna do is go like this and make it straight, and then curved, and then straight and curved. There are no straight parts. It's curved the whole time. So my technique is to go like this, and then when I feel it's just right, then I just lower my pencil. So I don't know if that trick works for you, but for me, it's about feeling it and then dropping my pencil down. If you've got a straight edge, that's great. You can use that. I am just going to use my pencil here and draw a couple lines. Couple lines that go straight down. And for the bottom, it's much like the cone. You have another one here. Of course, we don't want this to be transparent. Really, we just need this curve right here. There we go. I didn't do the best with that. We'll give that another go. Yeah, good enough. All right. So you've got something that looks like a can of soup or something. Which maybe I'll turn it into a can of soup. Why not? But first, let's shade this thing. So I'm going to turn this sideways. You can do it however you want, but I just find it comfortable to move my hand this way in front of me instead of going up and down. So that might be a tip or trick that works for you. So I'm looking at my pencil. Ooh, I see a lot of graphite on the bottom side. See that difference? This didn't sharpen very well. So I'm going to turn the side with most graphite down and go like this. And I'm pressing pretty hard, and then I'm going to lighten my pressure. And then I'll do this part on this side. Just so I have a slow transition from dark to light and back to dark. And again, just like last time, I know you're thinking, man, that's a weird looking can, man. You got to make that look better. Well, got this fancy blending stuff. Or you could use your finger. Either way, try to get it nice and smooth. Or a tissue. If you have a tissue, you can put that in your hand. But I want this to be a nice, smooth, gradual transition with no chunky areas or blotchy areas. And yes, I am going right outside the outline. That's okay. I'll just clean it up with a piece of paper. Get that edge nice and clean. Oh yeah, that's looking good. And I'll tighten up this edge. There we go. All right. So I'll mess with the top and the bottom in just a minute, but you've got to agree that makes it look round, you know, because we have that shine or that highlight there. All right, this time I'm just gonna go like this and kind of make it round on the edge. So I've got a shadow maybe traveling that way. And I'm gonna go in here with my side of my pencil, shade this in. So by now, I think you understand shadows. No need to repeat all this, but I will anyway. Go from dark to light and keep lightening your pressure. I'm not pressing very hard here. And I'll just use my finger to make that look all smudged. There we go. Not a bad shadow. All right. So maybe for the top of this, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have this can open like I just popped it open to have some soup. So I'm gonna go like this. And you know, sometimes you get a little bit of a jagged edge. So maybe I'll do that. I'll make a little bit of a jagged edge here on my soup can. And I'm gonna throw a couple rings in here. Sometimes when you look inside the can, you see stuff like this. You've got the top of the can, this little lip here. So I'm putting a second line. But sometimes you see little ridges inside the can like that. So you might put a couple of those in there. I'm even gonna make it a little darker right here because it's gonna be going down into the can. So it's probably darker down inside there. I'm having fun with this now. And I think I'll make it Campbell's soup. So I'm gonna put the little label here and draw another curve, just like the top and bottom. Well, that wasn't very good. Let's try that one more time. That was rough. Okay. You know how Campbell has I think it's red on top and white on the bottom, and it might say something like Campbell's tomato soup. I know they've got some kind of detail on the bottom here, and could put all kinds of stuff on there. I'm not going to get any more carried away, but you might. You might really fancy this up. Maybe even make it darker on the top or bottom. But I hope you've got a decent looking cylinder. And if you were to shade this a little bit, we could even make this outline disappear. At the end of the day, that's really what we're going for, is drawing something that really doesn't have outlines, but it's just the different values that bring it to life, okay? All right, so let's tackle our last two. Let's start with the pyramid. I think those are pretty easy as far as having direct value changes. For a pyramid, we're just gonna start with a tall straight line, a test to see how well you can draw a straight line, or you can use a straight edge or a pencil. And I'm gonna draw a couple more lines here, going this way and this way. So essentially it looks like an arrow. And let's finish up that pyramid with a couple more lines, one that goes this way and one that goes this way. So this looks kind of flat right now. I mean, this could be a square with a line through it, if you can imagine that. But to make it look like a pyramid, we're gonna have to have one side, if we think about the sun, again, shining down on this, one side lighter, one side darker. And there's not gonna be, which is kind of difficult, this slow or gradual value change. That's a lot of work. This time, we just have to shade one side. Watch this. I'm just gonna make sure I don't go over the edge here. I've got another piece of paper I'm putting on top, and I'm just gonna shade using the side of my pencil, just shade this in. There we go. You can go right up to that edge. And I do want to go right up to that edge so that this is not really a line anymore, but it kind of just disappears. And I'll use my blender to make this a bit more solid. Yes, I'm going outside the lines. I don't care. I'll just clean it up in a second here. And if you want to go slower and take your time and not do this step or this stage, that's cool too. All right. So do try to eliminate any outlines on this side or on this bottom side. It should just be a big triangle full of value. You know, on this side, I think I'll put some value. That way I can get rid of this edge. So watch this. I'll just use whatever graphite is on my blending stump and give it some value. And then I'm going to come right in here using my paper as a stencil, and I'm going to try to take that edge right off of there. Oh, look at that. I got rid of the outline. That's so cool. I'll just keep this one down here just because when an object hits something like a table, or you're going to have a dark edge there. So let's see, we've got the sun over here. That means the shadow is coming this way. So I'll just quickly lay out that shadow. And by now, you guys know how to make shadows. Make it dark. I'm turning my paper this way, again, because I like to shade this direction. So I'm going to go right up to it, make it really intense, really dark. And then just lighten my pressure as I go back in space. Again, I know, looks a little rough at first. That's okay. I can take my blender, now that I've got some graphite down there, and I can move that around and make it look really smooth. And I've got my eraser, not just a mistake fixer. It's a drawing tool. I can clean it up that way. I could even make it a little more fuzzy out here on the edge. But my whole goal with this is to not see any outlines. There really aren't any. Maybe there's this one here, which you could get rid of if you wanted to. I'll make it a little less pronounced there. Yeah, don't underestimate these. Just a simple piece of paper and an eraser, it can really do a lot. So there we go. One side is obviously darker than the other. We've got the cast shadow. I mean, we could turn this into a pyramid if you wanted to. So what I would do to make this more pyramid-like is to follow this bottom line up and just make another one of those. And another one that are kind of equidistant. There we go. And once you've got that row laid out, well, you could just carry it over this way, make another, and another, all the way up. You could leave it like that if you like, or you could come back in here and make lines that go up toward this peak. And you could make some individual bricks. You could even add texture by putting a few dots on there to make it look a little more rough and rocky. And well, you could really get carried away with this if you want. But I'm going to leave it at that point for now. You can do more if you like. But hopefully you've got yourself a pyramid really that has no outlines. That's the main thing we're going for. Pyramids do not have outlines. For sure, if you went to the Giza Plateau where the Great Pyramids are and took a photo, it would not look like a coloring book with outlines. All right, let's do our final one, which is the cube. So this one's going to be a little more intense. Check it out. Let's start with a square. And again, you can use a straight edge if you want, but this is how I draw my squares. I start with the left and right, and since I'm so good at drawing lines north and south, I just turn my paper and I do that again. There we go. And don't worry if it's if it's perfect or not. I don't think I'm going to sign my name to this and try to sell it. So I'm just trying to get you guys to learn the basics. All right. Next thing I'd like you to do, let's do this in 1 point perspective. So somewhere up here, make yourself a point. That's going to be our vanishing point. And you might want a straight edge for this, but I'm going to take my pencil and go from this corner right toward that vanishing point. And just throw it that way. I'm not going to go all the way there. Oh boy, I should have caught the corner. Let's try that one more time. Yes, even I, Mr. Linderman, will make mistakes. So I really want this to look good. So let's try this again. All right, let's go from this corner up toward this vanishing point. My Alexa just went off. That was weird. Alexa, stop. No, you should not play disco. All right, I need to take more time and care with this. I probably should have a straight edge with me. I'd get a better result. A pencil is not ideal, but I'm going to make it work. So I'm trying to send all three of those lines toward that vanishing point. That's going to make it look like it's going back in space. Next thing I need to do is to make a top. I don't want this to be way back here so it looks like a stick of butter. I'm going for a cube because I have in my mind that I'm going to make this into a die. Like you have 2 dice, 1 die. So right here, I'm going to make a line that goes across the top. It's the same direction as this guy here. There we go. And I'm going to make another one that goes straight down, just like this one, just north and south, straight down. There we go. And so there's your cube. I am going to erase the rest of these because I really don't want those. So I'm going to use my fancy electric eraser. All right. Now I've just got the cube. When I'm done with this thing, I do not want to have outlines, okay? So I'm thinking about the sun shining down on this thing. Probably the top would be the lightest. I mean, you could go in here and just give it a little bit of color, a little value, and again, that will help when I try to eliminate these edges in a little bit. Same as we did with our sphere. A little value goes a long way. So see how quick I did that, just smudging it with my finger. This side, I think I'll make like a medium value. So I'll just use my pencil point here and try to shade that in darker than the top, obviously. Go right to the edges. So I'm doing some smooth blending here, trying to get this to look solid right to the edge. There we go. And on this side, I'm going to make this pretty dark, darker than this. Maybe I went a little too dark there, but well, I think this will work. I'm going to press even harder here. Right to the edge. I think I'll just outline this whole thing nice and dark and then fill it right in. This is a little good habit to get into is just turning the paper to just the way you need it. I'm just not moving my hand in all different directions. I know what's comfortable for me. What's comfortable for me is shading this way and keeping my hand right there. And now I'm going to make this nice and dark. Just shade it right in. Not worried about going outside the lines one bit. Nice and dark. All right. I hope you'll agree I've got 3 really different values: light, medium, dark. And now it's time to clean this thing up and make it even look better. Right on this edge. Nice and clean. There we go. I'm going to try to, next I'm going to get rid of the outline that is seen up on this top side. So I'm glad I have a little value there, because watch this. We'll just knock that right out of there. Oh yeah, look at that. No outline at all. Get rid of this top outline. Because of course, if you were drawing a real die, it wouldn't have an outline. And I'll even clean up this corner so it's really, really well done. There we go. So that's pretty decent. No outlines. Let me show you one more trick though. Aha. I'm going to take my piece of paper. You might have to sacrifice one of your sketch pages. And I'm going to tear this in half. Watch this. And I don't care about the ripped edges, but I just want these 2 pieces, these straight edges. Hope you're watching this. This is like a magic trick for drawing. Check this out. So I'm going to use these 2 pieces, and I'm going to brighten up this edge. Because sometimes when the light hits a cube like this, the very edge gets really bright. Watch this. Whoa, looks like it's shiny now. I think I'll make that just a little bit wider. There we go. And get rid of those eraser boogers. And maybe I'll even do that on this edge here. I'll put a nice little glow there. So I've just got 2 pieces of paper. You can make it as thick or as thin as you want. You drag your eraser over that. And there you go. So it's not so much an outline as it is kind of a little highlight. You know, it's catching a little edge. You could even come in here and make this kind of rounded. Like it's catching that edge and that's round. Like some dice are like that. So maybe I'll round this one too. You could round your edges. I could really get into this thing. And you don't have to have a fancy eraser like mine. I'm not trying to flex on you. I'm just showing you. You could do this with a regular eraser. Well, heck, let's put some numbers on this die. Maybe right up here, there's a 1 or 1 circle. I'm making it kind of flat and horizontal. This side's facing us, so I guess we could just make them just regular old circles. Maybe there's 3 on this side. There we go. And, well, it's kind of got a glare there, but hopefully you can see that they're there. On this side, I just think I'll make 2, but I'm going to make these vertical because they're on the vertical side. That will make them look taller. All right, last but not least, just going to drop a little cast shadow off of this thing. Maybe it comes over this way, and this comes off the back corner. Maybe it's got a little angle to it. There is a way that I'll show you once we learn perspective drawing to really calculate more mathematically how to calculate a shadow, but we're not going to tackle that today. That's a little advanced. All right, throw your shadow in there. Make it really intense and really dark next to the object, and lighter as you travel away from it. That's just how shadows are. And I'm going to just do this quickly because by now you're probably shadow experts. So you get the idea. All right. So if you hung in there, you just got yourself 50 points. 10 points for each of these, and that's something that should go into your sketchbook. Now, I do want to spend 1 minute with fabric, though. Fabric is something that you might encounter. Really, it's just, well, it's a lot of cone and cylinder shapes. So let me show you with a couple pictures really quick what we're talking about. If you take a look at fabric like this here, hopefully you can see that, hey, there's a cone shape right there, or that looks kind of like a half of a cylinder. It looks like a big cone shape over here. So I think that's pretty obvious. If you look at this left side, kind of a cone shape, which goes from dark to light. Here's another, dark to light. Sometimes you get combinations of cones. It's like one cone melting into another cone. So that gets a little tricky in the middle. But if you know how to shade a cone, you can shade this kind of fabric. And check out this cone going right down the middle. Sometimes, like curtains or things you might see on a stage or you know, a long flowy dress, it might just look like cylinders. It's not so much cone shape, but tubular folds. So that's another way to do it. Or something like this. You know, you might see a tablecloth that goes in and out like that. Or you just grab a cloth and it just ends up making things that look like that. So those are really the 3 main type. You have your cone-shaped folds, your combinations, your tubular ones, and then lastly, there's what we call inert folds. There's no real easy way to do inert folds because it's combinations of lots of things, little cone shapes and little, tubular shapes and little cylinders and all kind of jumbled up. So really, you just have to go slow and take it in chunks. But let me show you how to draw one. You might get a kick out of this, and it might just challenge you to do this yourself. So let's just draw a very simple, like a table or something. I'll just go this way and this way. This is supposed to represent the corner of the table, and here's the back and top of the table. So it's like you're drawing a little, little diamond shape, essentially. And let's just say you've got some objects on your table here. Let's just draw ourselves a little quick vase. And you've got some flowers coming out. This could be your still life. Maybe there's a bowl up here with some fruit in it. All right. But you might have some fabric, a tablecloth here. Well, one thing you could do is right in the corner, you could make yourself kind of a cone shape. That's generally where those happen, is right on the corners. You could make another one over here. And over here, just draw yourself a cone, much like we did up here. And let's zoom in a little bit here. And if that part comes out, maybe this part goes in. Let's do it this way. I'll show you an easy way to do this. Just draw yourself some lines that go down like this. Maybe they're slightly different angles or different lengths. But anytime you draw verticals like this, it's going to let you know that fabric is going up and down. So check this out. This one curved like a smiley face. This one's a frown. This one's like a smiley face. This one's a frown. Smiley face, frown. And you might get lucky and get them to go every other. But hopefully you'll agree, this kind of looks like it's going in and out. This goes in, out, frown, smiley face, frown. I'll do one more here. Smiley face and a frown. So it looks like it's kind of wavy, right? Kind of cool. And you can actually drop in some table legs if you wanted to make this look like it's actually a wood table. Let's do another over here. And another one back here. But really what I want to concentrate on are this fabric to make it look even more realistic. So it's just like shading a cone. I'm considering maybe a light source up this way this time. So I'll make it light on that edge, and then it gets a little darker right here. Right in here it gets really dark. But then it starts to catch some light again, so it's kind of like an inside cone shape. And right on that edge it gets bright again. And so I'm just gonna make it light, and then I'll make it darker again. And right in here it gets really dark. All the way up into here, where, once again, it's another cone shape, it catches light again. So what this is an exercise in pressure of your pencil. Dark to light, light to dark, and dark again, and then you hit that line, boom, light again. So it can really look like fabric that's coming in and going out, and I'd probably carry that all the way up to the very top. So you can see that this whole side that's facing downward is darker, and the tabletop is lighter. It's being illuminated by the light. So I could keep going with this, but I'd like you to try. See if you can make that tablecloth look like it's going in and out. And then there's other things that happen. You get things on top of the table that might go this way or that way. And those too might have a little bit of light to dark. It might catch some light and then make a little cylinder and catch some more light there. And you can blend those out. I'd rather keep that lighter and not too dark. But you can get some details just like that up in the top part as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little mini lesson on the 5 basic geometric forms. Once you get this stuff down, you can really draw anything because it's just either these basic forms or combinations of those forms. So that's it, 50 points. Have a great day.